Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to another edition of our UIC Backstage series where we're talking to creators of this year's season's productions. We last met during a discussion of UIC's first play of the season, Reverb, and now we're moving into our second play of the season, Love's Labor's Lost by William Shakespeare. And just as we came up with creative solutions for the first play of the year for Reverb and ended up filming in locations around Chicago and creating a piece that was solely driven by students. In this particular world that we're living in right now with its special challenges, we have come up with solutions to create a world of Shakespeare for our audience in an online setting. And I wanted to introduce our creative team here, some of whom have joined us for this discussion. I am actually the director of Love's Labor's Lost, so I'm sort of wearing two hats today. And I'll sort of interview myself in a way, but or at least talk about the concept for this production. But I also want to introduce Myron Elliott, who's our costume designer, David Hernandez, who is a student at UIC and is working as assistant director, mainly in charge of all of the videoing and film processing of this production for its final take as we put it up online. And also Amos Gillespie is here, and this is really exciting because Amos is a faculty member on the music faculty at the UIC School of Theater and Music, and Amos is joining us in a collaborative way, which is great. We love to collaborate with the School of Music, and Amos has written beautiful music for this production. So welcome to all of you. And I just want to start out by saying that as a director, I actually considered whether it was worthwhile doing this big Shakespeare comedy in the midst of everything that's going on in our world. And it took me a while to think about how we might still do this. But one thing that attracted me to this play was that it's a play about young people in love, and it's a play about how those young people in love are negotiating distance and negotiating their relationships in a stressful kind of time. It's a play that asks us to think about what love means and what love means when you're a young person, when you're a teenager, what love means as you get older. And as I thought about that more and more, it became very clear to me that this is not only a wonderful play to be doing right now, it's really an essential play to be doing right now. And the students have really risen to that occasion. And I just want to say, I've been really proud of the students' work on this play. There are 18 people in the cast, and one of the cast members said to me, I just feel so fortunate that we are able to create art during this time, however we create it. We've had close to 5 weeks of rehearsal in the theater space where we rehearsed live in masks, socially distanced, so that people could get the play in their bodies and move around the space in safety. And we took very special care to make sure everyone was protected. And now we're in the middle of filming the play as we speak. We had our first night of filming last night. So I think I'd like to first go to Myron, because Myron and I began to talk about this production all the way back in the summer. Myron is a faculty member here at UIC, and we began to talk about the design for this and ideas for the design. And I'd like to just ask you, Myron, to talk about your thoughts when you first read the play and how they've changed over time, and then how you come to conceive this strange beast online as we've moved into this new world. So thank you for talking about all that, Myron.
Sure. I think the first impulse that we had initially, kind of on first read, or even on the idea of doing this play, became about attacking it or approaching it from a very kind of real space. Initially, it was about like, oh, we can choose a period and really kind of have this lush, sumptuous version of this play. And then as we learned more about kind of what was happening in the world around us and what we were able to do as far as, restrictions and spaces go, finding out or figuring out really what we would be able to achieve, and also what makes sense with our play. And for a few moments, I feel like we were looking at trying to be in person in some way, filming in person in some way. And I think I tried to find a way that we could accommodate that and kind of create this world that felt like a kind of a backstage theatrical world that felt kind of maybe a little bit pared down. And then as we really, it became very clear that the risks we would be taking to try to do things in person for filming, and then also the payoff of like masks versus no masks, and what we would be losing with trying to perform with masks. As we shifted towards something that was more remote and digitally oriented, I knew that the things we would be able to achieve, the way we're seeing them, maybe we would be better off to look at this kind of format of similar to what the Shaw Festival does, where they have a reading, but then there's all this kind of extra information around that to help the audience envision what their world is. And so then as we kind of settled towards something like that, or shifted towards something like that rather, then all the parameters of what we're able to produce kind of evaporated. And so we got to have this kind of discussion about, okay, we don't have to worry really about the budget. We don't have to really about executing these things. What do we want to dream up? And so in the dream up version of this, and having the previous versions of this, where there's this period version, there's a stripped back version, the dream up version kind of became a little bit of both of those things, where there's this layered version of a little bit of asynchronous or non-period specific. Maybe it's the humor, maybe it's something on the costume, but also this idea of long ago and far away. So that kind of has this adult fairy tale quality to it. So I started approaching things in collage, and I got to really have a lot of fun with creating a visual world that was based in collage, and that's what, and knowing that my work doesn't always get seen by an audience, which is a different way of approaching things for me. So often, the audience sees the final product on stage, but they don't see my sketches or my research, unless there's like a lobby display or something. So in this version, I knew that was going to be part of our visual world, which is a little bit different approach for me. So really making sure that there's kind of a cohesive quality to this thing, but also that they understand that this is a not completely real space, that there's kind of a fable quality. A fairy tale makes it feel like a children's story, and so I guess maybe a fable is a little bit more appropriate for what we're doing here. But those are just things that really shifted for me, and also it changed my interaction with director, and a little bit. I didn't interact with the cast as much as I usually do, but I know like Rick and I have had more discussions about like, okay, but like who is this person, or like what are we trying to say in a specific moment? And I feel like I've had more input there because I've had more kind of time and bandwidth to be present and have those meetings and have that kind of aha moment of like, what are we saying here? So it's just been a different approach. It's been a shift. It's still very, there's a lot of fulfillment in the work that we've done. And I feel like I have a very different kind of ownership in this process than I normally do. But it's been cool to try to figure out where we've landed. And then once that happened, things moved really quickly. So we talked about this for quite a while, shift, landed, and hit somewhere really exciting.
Wonderful. So we've got, yeah, as you say, this adult fairy tale, and I very much like that description of what the play is. It's a play in which people are discovering love in a kind of, fairy tale setting, with beautiful costumes, which are highly theatrical. In this particular case, we'll see the costume renderings, and people will be performing in sort of simple black clothing and performing in front of green screens and so on. But we will be suggesting the world around them by these beautiful and, as I say, performative and theatrical costumes that you've got. And I love the way you've described the process in the world of the play. And Amos, I wanted to go over to you and see if you could discuss the way music has fit into this world and what some of the ideas that you've had how they've developed over time, and how you see the world of this play and your music fitting into that world.
Yeah. Well, as you remember, Rick, we started talking about this all the way back in February. So it's been a long road, and a great one, especially to get to know you as a director, as an expert in Shakespeare, and also the rest of the production team. And yes, I wish that we had more in-person meetings so I could have more of an intimate, and better social experience with everybody. But starting all the way back then, we were talking about live instrumentalists and putting them on the stage and writing music that was in the style of this Edwardian age, around the turn of the century in the early 1900s. And so you were describing to me composers that just, really kind of ring a bell for me, like Gustav Mahler and Vaughan Williams, and I was like, isn't this a comedy? And this is like dating all the way back into the 1500s, as far as I understand it. The other Shakespeare, the productions that I've seen of it, and seen recordings of, it's very Renaissance sounding music. And you're talking to me about Mahler and all this, and I was just like, this is exciting for me because that's kind of like my bread and butter. I love romantic music. I naturally kind of would choose to write in a very tonal style. But I'm also a saxophonist, so a lot of jazz influence gets into my music. But the Romantic era music was wonderful to think about, and then remember at the beginning of this, you had this idea, which I really liked, of having a grand piano on the stage, this big black piano, as kind of foreshadowing what was to come at the end of the play. As we all know, and I don't want to spoil too much, but there is some death that comes at the end of the play, and you wanted to let that serve as this undercurrent amidst all the lightness and the frivolousness and the fun that's happening. And so we were going to write music to with the instrumentation of violin and piano, and just make that the whole thing, which I love. But over the course of the months, we've adapted, we've switched gears, and Rick has been pushing me to write music all the way through May and June, and he asking me, oh, I want some samples, I want this and this, and I ended up writing a couple minutes worth of music, but I was resisting. I was just like, we're producing in the fall, and I'm glad that I resisted, because we ended up changing a lot of the stylistic approaches. So it's been interesting and wonderful experience, and things are just sort of fitting together. I'm able to use some of my existing chamber music repertoire that is very has been professionally recorded. I'm using that certain samples that are going to fit into the style, fit into time length, for transitional elements, scene changes, and then some act changes. But then we also have 3 songs that are existing in the play. In the original text of the play, I don't think the Moth song was originally included. Is that correct, Rick?
That's correct. That's correct. I gave you a sonnet, and we're adding a song in the play. Yeah.
Right. So in addition to the 2 that are sort of inclusive in the play already, we're adding one, and so we wrote the song, I wrote the songs, came up with a demo, recruiting the help of my singer wife to help me to come up with the demo for the production team, and then also for our students. And it's and then moving into rehearsal with them, it's been one step after the next, to get this all put together, and it's interesting and very new to me in a lot of respects.
Well, I think I can safely say that this has been a very successful collaboration between theater and music, and also a pathway toward more collaboration with theater and music. And for those prospective students who are thinking of coming to UIC, I think this is another example. You saw with Reverb lots of examples of opportunities to do different kinds of things, to write, to make films. Here we've got opportunities to collaborate and to sing and to create theater that is both musical and classical in nature. And so I think this is just another example of the many opportunities that students have at UIC to do creative work. And it's been fantastic to watch. And I'm sure that as we're talking today, I'm sure that we're probably going to be listening to some of your music underneath our conversation or around our conversation. So we'll hear some of your music today. I want to go to David. And David, you're a student at UIC, and I want to just remind folks who may not have seen Reverb how you were deeply involved in that production as well. And so you're coming off of that production with a lot of experience in filming, and you've had an extraordinary presence in this production. You've been involved in the conception of this production for a long time, months and months before, and also you've been in the rehearsals, and you've been helping to conceive how this ultimately is going to all come about and look. So it's been an incredible experience for me working with you, and I wonder if you could just talk about your experience as a student and the creative experience of working on this particular play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one word is adapting, right? Adapting. This, for Reverb, we were having meetings since July, production meetings since July. So we had like a 3-month thing to come up with, for this production. Our time was actually limited, right? It's a lot smaller. We had maybe about 6 weeks. And, what I love about UIC is that when there's a will, there's a way, right? When we want to keep making art, we will find a way. And even though we only had 6 weeks for this production, our ideas had to change 3 different times. We went from, we're going to be on stage with a limited audience, to, okay, we're just going to film the stage production. Okay, you know what? We're going to send every actor a green screen and a light kit because they're going to film independently. So the production team had to adapt 3 different times. And I think, and on top of that, we're working with a play where, even though, right, it's an older play, it's a Shakespeare play, the characters in the play are also adapting every single moment. They're like, it's in a really extreme sense, right? They go from wanting to just be quarantined and study for 3 years, right, with the men in the play, to falling in love. And then what does it mean to love, and what does it mean to woo somebody? Everything changes, and then letters get mixed up. There's so many things that cause these characters to change their action, their way of being. Same thing we were going through as art makers, right? I mean, first of all, making art in this time is very different, right? Especially as theater people. How do we keep making theatrical art in this new world of virtualness of film? And then dealing with things that changes. So very quickly, I went from being, like a theater producer to the film guy, right? Which I love. And this experience has been cool. It was something that me and Rick talked about early on, is that how do we avoid the Zoom call template, right? The Zoom call has become a phenomenon now, right? It's a place where we all can easily communicate with each other and connect. But how do we use that or manipulate it to create an artistic vision that we want to express, right? So something that I became in charge of was the video framing, right? How do we want it to look ultimately on screen? And if we're getting videos from all these actors self-taping and self-producing in their homes, how can we make it look fun, engaging, and creative? So we also got a great video editor on board. His name is Peter Neville. So he's gonna be the one doing the gritty work when all the filming is over. But I had a great time just story framing, vision boarding, or storyboarding, as they say, just to see how the play will look like in the end. And it's been a really fun journey, right? It's a complex play, because at the end of the day, these are actors and they're also students. So in a student production, they're producing amazing art while also learning how to do it at the same time. And that's a big thing that people tend to forget, right? And you forget completely because you see the end product and you forget that they're students, because the product usually ends up coming out so beautiful and amazing. But there's a lot of learning in the process, especially now with the video world and the tech world coming into place in the world of the actor. So it's been very, very fun. And I think it's just another testament how when there's a will, there's a way. And also that UIC is the type of school that will find that way in order to keep creating art, even with an 18-person cast. Right? And I think that's very beautiful.
That's great. Wonderful thoughts. You know, I think of how this production has evolved over time. As you said, we've gone through 3 or 4 or 5 different ideas about what this was going to be. And as Myron, as you pointed out, there's been many different conceptions that we've had to go through to arrive at where we are, and to sort of plant our stake in the ground and say, this is what this production is going to be. What has surprised each of you most about the play, the process, and the creation of this production of Shakespeare's play Love's Labour's Lost at UIC? I'll start with you, Myron. What surprised you most about this experience?
The thing I have noticed the most is how much over time these characters have started to make more sense to me. I think in our current position where we're it's been a year of I feel like trying to build up hope, or trying to return to something that feels familiar, and then getting new news. It's often not been good news, and identifying with a piece of that, but also finding a place where I really feel happy with the product we've been able to make. I think the way we've been able to do it has also been responsible to both ourselves and to our students. So there's become I really wondered if it was going to be a less fulfilling process in some way once we kind of landed on something that felt like the thing to move forward with. And I think in the end, it's certainly different. But I do feel, like I mentioned before, I feel like I have a different kind of ownership in this process. And I'm valuing having a new experience at this point in my life, or a point in my career, I guess. And it feels like the right thing to do, in that, everything around us is different right now. Mm-hmm. Why should this be the same? And it's forcing a lot of us who feel like we're maybe more comfortable in our zones. It's forcing us into new places, or helping us discover new places. Maybe force isn't the right word, but we're really continuing to stretch and learn, even the more seasoned of us in the room. And certainly our students are having an opportunity to really approach something from a very different direction or a different space. I think it's something that's going to stay with them for a while. I think they will take, and I'm hoping everybody's learning lessons like these, or learning new approaches. So that's what I'm taking away currently, and we've still got weeks to go, so maybe there will be more things.
Yeah, well, I think I hope, and I know you do too, that they're going to have a lot of pride in their ability to actually do this, during this time, right? That we didn't just throw up our hands and say, it's too much. We figured it out some way to create art in this world that we're living in, and I think actually quite a piece of beautiful and touching and funny and crazy art from 1593 to our time. So Amos,
something that belongs right now too, right? But I think before I was having a hard time figuring out, like, what does this mean in 2020? And I think it's because of the people who are doing it and the way we're doing it. I think it has created connections to our current kind of time and place. It's not floating a bubble. It's not just it's not a Valentine, and it's not a fluff piece. It has some connections to what we're doing here every day too.
Yeah, and it's not a Zoom reading either. I mean, David, you can speak more to that too, but it's not a Zoom. We're seeing a lot of Zoom readings, and I appreciate that people are doing them, but that we're doing something different. And Amos, what has surprised you about this process the most? What's your takeaway from this?
Well, everything about this is pretty new to me. I mean, my majority of my experience is writing absolute music, chamber music, contemporary classical music. And so to have the opportunity to be able to really kind of explore the narrative of the play and to write themes and to weave them in throughout the play, and just to help with the storytelling has been really something I've always wanted to do and wanted to be more actively involved in career-wise. So it's been that's been a great opportunity. And so just that, with all the whole quarantine and doing everything over Zoom aside, it was new from the start for me. But then going into adapting for the current times and everything being through Zoom, it's cumbersome in some ways, but we are persevering. And I can tell you that when I finished the songs and scheduled the rehearsals with our actors, it was really refreshing to be able to make music with our students, with people, live again, and get the recordings done. And we have such talented students, so the whole process has been really fresh and wonderful for me.
Yeah, and I can't wait for people to hear your songs and your music. It's so beautiful, and you've just created some gorgeous music that adds a whole other dimension to this production. So thank you. David, give us your last word here. What's been surprising, and what is your takeaway from this whole experience? I know we're still in the middle of it, but what are you feeling right now?
Well, the surprising thing for me, the good surprise, is like the ownership of the actor's work. So for people watching, like, believe it or not every actor in the world is like familiar with Shakespeare. Like, there's a lot of people in this cast who have never done a Shakespeare show before, and seeing their growth from day one to now has truly been incredible, right? Rick teaches a whole semester on Shakespeare here at UIC. So to see him teach and direct at the same time, it's really incredible. So that's a testament to the great director we have, but also just the actors who, once again, are students who are hungry to work, who are really grateful to make art in this time. And it's hard enough doing a show with a lot of tech stuff, but add a really dense language-filled show, it's even harder. But the fact that we are where we at right now in the filming process, ready to go, I mean, that's huge. Like, it's a thing that we're gonna look back on later and think, like, wow, we really did that. That's really crazy when you really think about it. So I'm just like Rick said, and that student that shared that piece with him, I'm really grateful that we could still make art. And I think the last thing I'll say is that if right now is a great time to create new art, and if it doesn't terrify you just a bit, then it means that we're not pushing the boundaries enough, right? I think as artists, even when we were in person or in this world now, I think the greatest art always comes when there's a little bit of fear in it, right? There's always a little bit of fear. Will this work out? Will this be worth it? And so far the answer is yes, and that's where true growth comes in all types of artistry, and I'm really grateful for that.
Boy, so well said. So well said. I mean, you know, art should scare you. It should terrify you a little bit. I love that. I love that. I love you saying that. I think all of us can relate to that and relate to moving through those feelings towards something really special. And I want to thank all of you for joining me, Myron, David, Amos, and I can't wait for people to see this production. I think it's going to be very special, and it's going to be a great example of what our students can achieve, even in the toughest of circumstances. So thanks again, and everybody stay safe. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me.